chose not to be here. And John Baker, I understand, is sick and never got any response from Ben Connor as well. So I'd like you all to make a note. When you get ready to go vote, give some extra thought to the folks that are willing to engage with parents and citizens. Parents matter, right? So we appreciate candidates that are willing to engage. So the first round of this, each candidate has, did I say 2 minutes or 3 minutes? 2 minutes, okay. Each candidate has 2 minutes to do an introduction. Did you guys draw a number? Okay. Sorry. Who wants to do, so the way we plan to do this is pass out and y'all draw numbers. We are trying to get equal time as much so as we can. Are you okay with going first? All right, so Steve, I guess we'll go first with this introduction, and we'll go this way, that way. We'll set a timer at 2 minutes, try to keep everything equal. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve McKinney, District 11. I want to thank you for being here. I'm in the business of making a difference, and you are too, or you wouldn't be here. I'm a parent, a grandparent, I'm a teacher. I taught in Murfreesboro High School, moved here to be with my grandkids, be a part of their lives, and so I began substituting. And in doing that, I can tell you that I've been in the classroom with your students. I've walked the halls, I've seen and heard their daily challenges. I've seen things that work, I've seen things that don't work. I've seen things that unite, I've seen things that divide. I've seen barriers to learning. 244 days, I've substituted 36 different schools. So I feel like I've got a good overview on what's going on in Hamilton County Schools. I believe in a focus on the foundation. I believe in reading, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I believe in future-ready institute programs. I'm strong on education. And I believe that all students deserve the opportunity to be in good schools. This last weekend, I was in a neighborhood, we call it Projects. And the parents, time and time again, were saying, just because we live here doesn't mean we don't want the best for our kids. I want to stand in the gap for them, and that's why I'm running independent, because I don't want a party telling me which way to lean. Because I believe, as a 66-year-old man of faith that has raised kids, who has taught school, I don't need any advice on how to make my decision. I'm Steve McKinney, District 1.
And you're right, I agree. Education and criminal rights is not a party issue. We're equal opportunity. The Republicans dislike us just as much as the Democrats do. Larry, you're in District 8.
Good evening, folks, and thank you for being here. I'm Larry Brown. I was, my second career was as a teacher for 18 years. My wife was a career Army officer. I taught in 3 different states, in 4 different districts, and when we chose Chattanooga, just like Steve did, but we didn't have any family here, to retire here. Got involved politically starting in 2009. Some of you here were involved at that time too. I was a Chattanooga City Councilman for 4 years and ran for mayor in 2017. So I had a depth and breadth of experience. Steve mentioned Future Ready Schools. Future Ready Schools is like a VOTEC schools on steroids with all of the technology that has taken place, over the last 30 years or so since Kirkland closed. That is going to be the future for an untold number of our students. We need to do better on Future Ready Schools. And I'll give you just one small example. If you want to do engineering or construction of any kind, that's interior design, anything like that, the only school you can go to is East Ridge High School. If you are at any other school in the district, you have to be bused there on a morning schedule or an afternoon schedule. We need to make Future Ready more robust. I think this future school board is going to have to look at how to do that, because we waste educational time having to bus these kids around. Our numbers, in my opinion, did you know that if you are put on hold when you call the school district office, that it will tell you that we're the fastest improving district in the entire state of Tennessee? But do they tell you that they picked their own goal? And they didn't even achieve their goal the last 2 years. Yes, it is. I found the document so I can prove it. But it may not be true last year, but the year before it was. So we can do a better job curriculum-wise. Are we concerned about book issues and people calling us book banners and bigots and racist and homophobes? I have the proof right back here if you want to see what's in our schools. Now, had they been removed? I don't know. We'll have to find out. So, discipline in our schools is almost non-existent. Just this week, I spoke to 2 teachers, one at Eastridge Academy who quit because she was threatened to be shot, and another 3rd grade teacher at Brown Academy who, because of discipline issues and the disruptive nature of the school and her classroom, and this is a 3-year teacher, quit. And I spoke to her as she was taking time to speak to me because she was packing to go do training for her sales job. Her 2 friends who also live in the same house with her in Eastridge are also Hamilton County school teachers. The shop teacher at Eastridge High School, 21 years, he quit. He said, I can't put up with the disrespect and the lack of discipline in the school. Folks, I could go on, but I'm going to hand you over to someone who has a lot of experience and is, indeed, very interesting and caring man. Joseph.
So Larry took 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Does that mean I get 4 minutes and 11 seconds?
Yes, we forgot to say the timer. We're not professionals. You better.
If you don't mind, I'm going to remain seated. I had total knee replacement surgery just a few weeks ago. I'm not all the way there, but I'm about 90%. And so I'm going to remain seated, if you'll forgive me for that. Thank you, Moms of Liberty, for hosting this event. Thank you, Red Bank High School. And I think I see Coach Weathers up there, don't I? From
Yes.
Red Bank. And, thank you for opening the school for this, Coach. This is a fun place for me because this is where I went to school. But back then it was Red Bank Junior High. You remember that? The junior highs. And then this building, this gym, wasn't even here then. And then some years later, of course, they flipped the high school and this school and tore down the old high school. And those brick figures you see out front there, they used to be on the old high school. And I used to tell my kids growing up that was me and their mom. That was us. So I'm glad to be here. Thank y'all for doing this. Thank you for the interest. In 2016, I was appointed to fill the unexpired term of then school board member Greg Martin, Dr. Martin. And Dr. Martin got appointed to fill a term on the county commission, so that left his seat, and I was appointed to fill his seat. And even at that time, when that county commission seat was open, I ran for county commission. And Greg won that, and they appointed him. And I tell you, over the years, Greg and I became great friends. We worked together. We got some school board members and county commissioners. Listen, they don't respect each other. I'm telling you the truth. We got some. And you know, that's just no way to run a school system. The county commission and the school board ought to be just working together. And so Greg and I work very well together. Miss America, who happens to be my bride, she has a name. It's Paula. I call her Miss America. 47 years. We've raised 2 kids of our own. We got grandkids now. We've raised 19 foster kids. And most of all those foster kids are grown now. Many of them have got kids of their own, and I can tell you, 16 of the 19, this is important, 16 of the 19 today are productive, contributing, tax-paying members of society. 16 of the 19. One of them got killed in a gang shooting some time ago. One of them's in prison in West Tennessee. One of them is still around, but he struggles. He struggles. 16 out of 19, if I was a Major League Baseball player, I'd be making big bucks. But let me tell you this. Every time we took in one of those kids, and they were from all over the city, and we'd say, all right, Marcus, you've been going to Orchard Knob Middle School, but we're on Hickson. Now, do you want to stay at your school, or do you want to go to our school? No, Mr. Joe, I want to stay at my school. So we'd leave them there. They're failing everything, they're going to the principal every day, all kinds of problems. We bring them into our home, a few weeks later, grades begin to improve. Behavior begin to improve. Now, the teachers hadn't changed. The friends hadn't changed. The schoolhouse hadn't changed. The only thing that had changed is a home. Now, I say all that to simply say this. I just feel like that our expectations of government and our expectations of schools to fix all these social problems that we have is not realistic. It's not the government's job to fix the home. It's not the school teacher's job to be the parent, the nurse, the social worker, the guidance counselor. It's not that school teacher's job. So somewhere along the line, we got to understand that, maybe we put too much expectations on the school system. So going into this next term, this is one more thing. Going into this next term, if I have the pleasure to get reelected, my focus is on trying to change the culture of what's acceptable and what's expected from a behavior standpoint of our students, not just in District 3, but all over the county. Now, I know I went over to my Baptist preacher came out a little bit.
We're going to touch on that just a minute. Okay. I have got to say, I just find it really funny when people say Moms for Liberty people are highly trained, well organized. We're a bunch of moms and we forgot to set the timer. So, sorry about that. Virginia Ann Manson, I told you that she had a community event, so she's here, she's just late. So when you're giving every candidate 2 minutes for their introduction, you're going to have my microphone, so I don't have to, yeah. But, and so we forgot to set the timer, so.
I won't take 2 minutes. Thank you, First Brandon and Moms for Liberty for hosting this event, and our parents and trustees. I apologize for being late. We had a community event on where I live, and there's a young, he's not young anymore, he's 50 years old, but young old man that has Down syndrome and has been a real part of our community. He was in the schools, my public school, my children went to elementary school. He was very much a part of that, as a part of their summer program. We see him ride his bike, and I just felt it was very important for me to be there for him. We celebrate his birthday every year. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Hamilton County. My husband and I raised our children, educated in Hamilton County. And now my grandchildren are being raised here at Baptist Square Public School. Let me see how many talks I'm sorry, am I need to go later? My father was a pediatrician, longtime pediatrician in Hamilton County. And I bring him up because he and my mother were examples of living servant leadership to me. And they raised me to believe that you have to invest in the next generation if you want a future wrong. And I truly believe that. I've been involved in Girls Inc., been on the board of Girls Inc., Little Biz Magday, Early Learning Center, T.C. Thompson Children's Hospital. And for the last 17 years, I've been an administrator of Family School. I chose to retire and got asked to step up and do this. So I thought I've spent 17 years gaining great experience that I really wanted to commit to Hamilton County School. And my job, it was important that we all work together, and that would be administrators, teachers, parents, students. We work together to create an environment of academic excellence. And I'm really going to take those skills that I learned on the board level and on the academic level and work for District 11 and for Hamilton County to be a place where the opportunity for freshman education is available for all students, because that's so important. This started a little bit, the journey started a few years ago when the school board brought in a consulting firm that talked about closing our community schools. And, my children went to community schools, and I knew how important that was. And so that's why I got involved. And then started hearing things that I just, wasn't satisfied with. Learned about the low literacy rate. And a, fundamental strong education is key to an individual's success and happiness, and it's really fundamental for our academic success as well. And when I go around walking and knocking on doors, some people don't have good children in Hamilton County schools. They don't have children, so that you're a taxpayer, and you live in this community. And we all rise and fall together. We've all got to be committed. And so I really want to work hard for Hamilton County Schools to be a place where all students can have a strong fundamental education. I truly believe in that, and I'm committed to most of my time. In fact, all of it.
All right, we're going to be better about our timer. Okay, so we're going to have this next question and answer phase, and then a third one. So we have been collecting questions online, email, different groups. The teachers group sent us some questions. So we've been collecting questions electronically. So we pulled out a few of those questions. Let's see how our time goes. I know. And then we have been collecting. So then the next one, we're going to leave time to collect the questions that y'all wrote down on your index cards. Let me just say that, did I say why we're doing the index cards? Okay. So the reason that we are collecting the index cards, and first of all, make sure that we don't have duplicate questions, right? We want to use time wisely. We're also not going to ask unproductive questions. I've gotten questions submitted that want me to ask school board candidates to define what is a woman. Not going to ask that. I've gotten questions submitted that want us to ask why you hate and want to dismantle public education. Not going to ask that question either. So if you have questions you want to submit and haven't submitted yet, maybe see if you can find it. Julie will walk around with index cards. Let us know if you want to submit a question. We'll do that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask every candidate the same question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. And we understand, having the same question, you might just agree with the last person, but that's totally fine, but we want to give every candidate equal opportunity to answer. To, again, try to be even, we're going to go this way, what's it, left to right, right to left, middle to this way, and middle to that way. So we're going to try to balance, let everybody be the first or second person to answer, right? Trying to keep everything even. Okay, so first question, Virginia Ann. I got my list on my paper, that's what we're starting at. If I get out of order, I'll mess it up. Okay. So what is the biggest problem or barrier to education facing your district, and what do you propose or you'd like to work on to address that barrier?
Well, I would say the first thing that just, put it out there, safe schools. We have to have safe schools. And I love what they did recently in putting an SRO in every school, or an SSO in elementary schools. Things like that are really like building the I guess they call it man track is what I think some of the schools I went in had it, some didn't. Some of the elementary schools did not have an SRO, some didn't. I think that's just fundamental. And continuing to stay in touch with our law enforcement, our county commission, and making sure that our schools are safe so the parents feel comfortable sending their children to school. The next thing I would say is the literacy rate. That's pretty obvious. you know, only 34%, 36% of our students are on grade level in academic prepared, and that's a problem. It's a problem for our county. So I would put that as number one. And to me, you know, focusing on the fundamentals of education, writing, reading, and arithmetic. You know, preparing our students with those fundamentals so that they then have choices. When you know, I mean, if you can't read, if you aren't academically prepared, you're shutting choices down for your life, and that's just a shame. And so I would come back to focusing on the fundamentals of academics, because that's what our education. That's the first, you know, that's the first responsibility our education system has, is educating our students.
Thank you. All right, Steve McKay, do you need me to repeat the question? Okay. What is the biggest problem or barrier facing your district, and what would you propose to address that?
The academic rates is huge. The way I would propose to address that is focus on the education. If we focus on the education and not the indoctrination into other things, I feel like that we can avoid what I say is the number 2 problem, and that's distractions. Teachers are distracted, students are distracted. There's a lot of distraction going on, and I felt like as a school board member, I could make a difference in promoting education. There's also disorganization. Oftentimes, curriculum gets changed within months' notice. It shouldn't change. As a school teacher, you don't want to have the curriculum change during the school year, but it does. That's a problem on many levels. There's detachment. That's another problem that our district faces. We want to integrate so that all feel like they're part of the same team. And we don't have that as much as I would like for it to be. A lot of barriers that I feel like that we can address. Safety. I was on my walk this last weekend, went to a house and a little girl came out and just small talk, and I said, I guess you probably had better days because you're kind of struggling today. And she said that she was shocked. She was at the shooting at Mama Colley. Remember that took place not too long ago. Broke her tibia. So safety. Before she goes back to school, she's going to be concerned about her safety. We need to address that. SROs being taken out of the school to go to the Silverdale is not a good thing. We need to stop. And we need to stop that. And there's poverty that we'll get to another. Thank you.
And so you can keep the microphone. Every table has their own. Okay. All right, Larry Roan, do you need to repeat that question?
No, not necessarily. As a former teacher, if you do not have structure and discipline in your school, you cannot have a productive learning environment. You just can't. If you're an experienced teacher, you might be able to handle some of your issues in class. But when you feel that you might as well not send a student to a dean or a principal because they're going to be right back in your room the next day, that's a problem. It's going to take a lot of serious discussion in this new school board because, in my opinion, this restorative justice that we're going after is not working. The social emotional learning training, a non-academic pullout, only puts a victim in the same peace circle with their bully. And if you try to defend yourself if you're physically attacked and you both get suspended for 2 weeks and then you're both back in school, the next Monday after that suspension, that is not a safe environment for that student. So I think that's the number one issue. The number 2 issue is, of course, our literacy. And that's both in terms of English, it's written and spoken word, and our math literacy. Without those 2 things, we're graduating people, our future, our community's future, without the skills to be productive. And we end up with what we see with all the violence in Chattanooga, because these people will need to survive. And without the skills that our schools are supposed to provide them, it's not going to happen. So, I'm at 2 minutes, 10 seconds, and I'm going to stop.
Yeah, we are failing our children, we gotta fix that. Joe, do you need to repeat that question?
Please.
Okay. What is the biggest problem or barrier facing your district, and what do you propose, or what would you like to see happen to address that?
Specific to my district, how many District 3 people have we got here? Got one?
We can ask online. We did, I should have told, let's restart, let's close this down. Okay, that, we.
Anything to get more time.
Yeah, we do also have, this, whatever it is, streaming online, so, you should also have
Oh, okay.
it online as well.
Well, the reason I ask that, if you kind of compare district to district to district, up in District 3, our buildings are pretty good. I mean, we've got some issues, but our buildings are pretty good. And of course, every parent, whether it's District 3 or wherever, wants to make sure when they send their child to school in the morning that they're going to be safe. And 3 years ago now, when Dr. Johnson was here, we took a lot of steps all across the county to harden the entries to our schools. Now, if you go to most schools today and try to get in the door, it's not easy to get in. And that's the way it should be, and that's the way we want to be. So that's certainly good news, I think, for all of us, because we need safety. SROs, Sheriff Hammond tells us he can't find them, he can't hire them. So we had to take another approach, and that's the reason we're getting the security officers. But we're going to have one in every school beginning this fall. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Safety's got to come first and foremost. I think second to that, and I touched on this in my opening comments, is the culture of what's okay and what's not okay. Now, that's a problem in my district, particularly in my high school up there. But I know it's a problem all over town. In seemingly, and I know I'm white-headed and I'm getting old. Somebody said, well, he's 50, he's getting old. I think you said that. 50 is really young to me. But let me tell you, what has happened is we've become tolerant of the intolerant. We have. And so we look at a kid that's misbehaving, very disrespectful to a teacher, or cussing a teacher out, whatever, and we go, okay. And we just tolerate it.
Hey, I know, we get, no, but guess what? So, keep the microphone,
Okay.
because then the microphone's gonna go from your direction and this way.
Okay.
One of the other questions, not a surprise, and I'm thrilled at what you guys said, because, huge issue that was publicly submitted was school safety. So in school safety, and I know, if you've already talked about it, totally fine, but school safety and the bullying issue. And there's some parents in here tonight that have spoken about the bullying issue. So you've got, do we want to give the entire 2 minutes? Let's give just 1 minute on the way back. You want to do that? Yeah, we're 40 minutes.
I'll talk fast, y'all want
Okay,
some
go ahead.
facts.
So address school safety and bullying.
Well, just again to reinforce, we've done some things to harden anybody's ability to get in our building. So I'm proud of that. If we got more work to do, yeah, we do. But I am proud of that. This bullying thing, I tell you, technology is wonderful, but this and the internet is destroying a generation of kids. It just is. It just is. And parents that are letting kids get by, and I'll look at a 16-year-old kid sometimes that's done something, and I'll think to myself, He's 16 years old. Does he not know better than that? And the answer is no, because he hasn't been taught. And so they're bringing all this stuff into the schoolhouse, and we're allowing it to happen. And if you paid attention to school board meetings, every time we talk about discipline, I always bring up the code of conduct, which is a good code of conduct. Here's the problem. It's not being enforced. And it's being enforced differently at this school, and this school, and this school, and this school, so there's no, and I question that every time we talk about discipline. And I know we try to give our principals some autonomy with regard to how they run their buildings, but I talk about that all the time. There's nothing wrong with the code of acceptable behavior that we've adopted and got in place. Here's the problem. It's not being enforced. Until we get to the place to where we hold kids accountable and hold their parents accountable, or whoever the adult caregiver is, it's not going to change.
Thank you. All right, Mayor. Mayor Dunn. All right, so we know that the bullying issue is huge. Do you have any policy recommendations, ideas how to address that?
Well, as Joe stated, it's an ongoing process to harden our schools. A lot of it is taking place right now to harden more of these. We hope to get to a point where, when the bell rings for everyone to be in class, that there's a monitoring system that tells the central office of every school that every exterior, these higher count schools with 800 or 1,000. So that's what I would like. But I do want to make one quick comment. It doesn't matter who sits on that school board. Every single school board member who casts a vote is going to affect every parent and every child and every taxpayer in every district of this county. Yes, we're voted to represent certain districts, and we will do that. But every decision matters on this entire school board. Thank you.
Good point, thank you. Yeah, decision on what you were saying is that even though your district 8, your decisions affect District 11, District 3. Yeah, and I think that's what Joe was talking about. Everybody needs to be working together for the benefit of our entire district. Thank you. All right, Steve McKinney. All right, policies about bullying in school and school safety. What you got?
I want you to walk into my world for just a minute. Two scenarios. Went to one house and the mom was so excited to tell me that her child was on the honors list this school, on the 5th grade. Very quickly thereafter, the grandpa sitting behind said, well, she knows what discipline is. Because he said that that's the basis of her success. And he rewards her based on how she does at school. Very involved. So I told him that I felt like that school discipline was a big issue. What was his thought? And he said that he would like to have teachers that called him back, that took his calls and communicated. So to Virginia Ann's point, teachers do need to be involved with the parents. And not all parents want to be involved at every level. But when it comes to discipline, my suggestion is that they are involved. Another example, in the school system, told a student you need to do some work. He said he'd rather go to ISS than do the work. That's a problem. ISS is in school systems. So my suggestion is that we establish as best we can with the parents some form of communication because they've got to be involved. Whether it's an inconvenience or whether it's not an inconvenience, it just has to be addressed with the parents involved.
Hey, hang on, sorry. Why would that child want to go to ISS? I don't understand. Because they don't have to
Yeah,
do
if
work.
they go to ISS, in-school suspension, they can sleep, they can doodle, they can.
That's all right. Okay. All right. Good information here. Okay, Virginia Ann Vance in District 11. Talking about school safety policies about bullying the students.
Well, as far as school safety, I think I touched on that when I spoke, and I think everybody has touched on it. I think the school has some policies in recently that are positive. We need to keep our eye on that. As far as bullying, Joe stole my thunder. I was going to talk about the acceptable behavior policy that our school board has put in. And we need to hold kids accountable. You know, the same offense, the same discipline, all kids need to be held accountable. We need to have community discipline. And I think it's as simple as that. Thank you. And parent.
All right, yes, so Steve will be the first to answer this next question. All right, so Mr. Steve, we're gonna go from you and then to Virginia and then come around, and then Joe, and then Larry. Yeah, we'll tell you who to do next. All right, all for the sake of trying to keep it even. All right, so do you agree or disagree that it is the fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing, education, and care of their minor children, and all important information related to that minor child should not be withheld from parents or guardians? And feel free to elaborate. Do you need me to repeat that?
That's a long question.
I know, it's a long question. So the question is, do you think that parents have the fundamental right to make decisions for their kids, and they should have all of the information available to them to do so without that information being hidden from them?
Absolutely. I'll put my teacher hat on, then I'll put the parent hat on. As a teacher, you don't want the parents telling you how to direct the curriculum. You don't want them comparing what they give as a teacher. They don't want to hear from parents that you should treat all the kids the same. It's really not their place. But sometimes parents get this theory that their child is being treated differently than the rest of them. However, parents have got to be involved with what's going on in the school system. There should not be an attempt, an organized attempt, as some propose that there should be, where you block communication between parents and the teachers. That is a disaster. So I would be very much in favor of making sure we could do what we could about maintaining the communication between the parents and the schools.
Do you need to repeat that? Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just no question. In fact, the strongest schools, the schools that do the best, have the strongest parent involvement. They have parents that come alongside their teachers. The teachers are leading the academic way, but the parents are engaged. Not only is it, a parent has a child for a lifetime, it's your child, you should be involved, but it also helps the child. It's a more successful outcome. It makes the community stronger, and I think teachers and parents should work closely together. But parents should absolutely know, especially when it comes to their child's health. There's just no question about that.
Thank you. And Joe, yeah, before because I think you'll agree with me. I mean, at my house, if you get in trouble at school, you're getting in bigger trouble at home. So, mom was involved because mom was backing up those teachers.
No question, when I used to ride the school bus to come to this school, if I got in trouble, my parents knew about it before I got home, because the bus driver didn't call me. So yeah, you're right.
Do you need me to repeat that question? I know it's long.
I think I got it. Do I agree or disagree? Parent participation, knowledge.
They have the right to make all decisions, medical.
I've said about a lot of things. You said parent choice. I use that a lot. And I remember back, when we had the mask and everybody's fighting over whether you're supposed to wear a mask or not. And if you didn't want your child in a mask and you were killing other kids and you were racist and all kind of, y'all remember that? Y'all remember all that?
Yeah.
And I always said parent choice. This parent knows what's best for their child. I don't know what's best. They know what's best. And same thing over the boogie issue. I got criticized a lot for that. Parent choice. They want their kids reading that filth. It's their choice. So I'm sure we'll talk about that some here in a minute. But absolutely, parents have got to be involved. And even the at-risk kids that I work with every single day, I'm counseling their parents are more often than grandparents, because very few of them live with their grandparents. Because I tell them all the time, get up in their business. Get up in their business. Know what's going on in school. So absolutely, I agree with that.
Thank you.
I have to disagree with Steve. As a teacher, I always wanted parental input about curriculum because, again, until I get to know their student, I don't know what their special needs might be. And that goes for any range of students, whether they're a special education student, exceptional student, or what we used to call gifted and talented. But we have a process where the community is supposed to be an active participant in the selection of the curriculum for our entire district. I would like to see a community committee that is involved in that. If you want to get involved, you can get there. The Department of Education for the state is reviewing the social studies curriculum right now, and they're looking for input for the entire curriculum. So, you want to be involved, get online and be involved and make comments on the curriculum. And let me say this. My cardiac surgeon's third grader was up on Signal Mountain, and they're doing Peter Pan through EL education. And I said, well, you should ask her about what's going on in that Peter Pan curriculum these days. And he said, really? I said, yeah, just ask her. So he did. He came back to me a couple of days later and he said, I was astonished when my daughter told me that her teacher said, you know, students, why weren't there any girls in the Lost Boys? Think about that. Girls in the Lost Boys. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But then they wouldn't be the Lost Boys. And that completely dismisses the two heroines of Peter Pan's story, Tinkerbell and Wendy. Those are the two heroines of the story. One that stayed loyal and one that decided that no, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to face my responsibilities as I grow older and into adulthood.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. To review Peter Pan through a lens of racism, sexism, and xenophobia. So I don't know what third grader knows what the word xenophobia means, but they're supposed to be teaching that, FYI. Yeah. So curriculum matters. It really, really is important. Okay. So Larry Grove, you're keeping the microphone. All right. Teachers and parents both submitted this question. So this is teachers and parents both want to know. Would you support an effort to reduce the amount of testing being required? And then, are there any other programs you found, this is optional, other programs that you found that could be removed to give teachers more time to teach?
I believe all of that needs to be reviewed. As pretty much everyone up here has said, we need to concentrate on what the primary purpose of schools are. The primary focus of schools are not to fix all the problems of society. They are to educate our greatest asset, our children, future generations that will hold this country together. And as we have seen recently, we can lose our representative form of government within 1 or 2 generations. And we see it happening right now. So yes, there are programs such as the social emotional learning. You would be amazed at how much influence the Harvard Graduate School of Education has within our school district right now. One of the most radical leftist organizations, universities in the entire United States. They have formed 2 organizations that are active and we have contracts with in our schools today. We don't need that influence in our schools. We need to get back to what, and we get disparaged for saying, let's get back to the basics. Education needs to get back to the basics. Period. And the new school board needs to have a serious discussion about that.
Thank you.
You want to repeat that again? Larry's all over the
Absolutely.
place.
No, I forget, I'm always happy to get, okay. All right, teachers and parents both asking, would you support an effort to reduce the amount of testing required? And are there any other programs that could be removed to give teachers more time to teach?
Well, I mean, let me just touch on curriculum just a minute. I know it's not the question you asked, but that term has been mentioned several times, curriculum. I think it's important that the public understand, we don't choose curriculum. We don't. That comes from the state. And what they generally will do, they want to say, we're going to adopt a new literacy curriculum this year. And they'll give you 3 things to look at, and you got to pick one of the 3. And we have committees and different people look at. That's what Larry was mentioning. But all that is picked from the state level. We don't pick that locally. So I want to make sure everybody understands that.
Well, and we are pausing your time, so they choose one of the.
That's right.
Correct.
That's right. We're given 3 generally. Here's your 3 literacy curriculums, or here's your 3 social studies.
Actually, and I promise we can pause your time. There are districts, not in Hamilton County, there's another district, and actually a couple, that rejected all 3, and then they chose, not necessarily in a good way, but they chose an outside option. So that's an option not generally taken. So I just want to make sure we have a complete answer. Okay, go ahead. All right, we're restarting your time.
Okay, thank you. We lose about 300 average, about 300 teachers a year. And it's either to going into another field or retiring or moving to another district or whatever. About 300 a year. I don't know what the number is, I'm sure I haven't heard it yet. But what I did 2 or 3 months ago is I asked to give me names of 10 teachers in District 3 that were leaving. Because I want to do an exit interview. So I called them, and every one of them responded. Here's what was interesting. The teacher pay was not even in the top 3 reasons why they were leaving. It wasn't. I mean, most of us think, well, we're not paid enough. We talk about that all the time. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But teacher pay wasn't there. Number 1 was student behavior. That was number 1. We've already touched on that. But number 2 was testing. They feel like all they're doing is testing, which robs what? Instruction time. So, once again, on the local level, we don't have anything to do with that. That's Bo Watson, Paxton, Hazelwood, and Central Gardenhire. That's who we need to be working on for that, because those decisions are made there. But yeah, that absolutely.
You would support reducing, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I want to learn more about how we can do that, yeah. These teachers have got to be exhausted.
It's all they do.
Right,
It's all they do.
yes.
One of them told me 25% of their time over the course of the school year, 25% is spent doing testing.
And then guess who gets deemed on their pay raises and their scores if the students don't test well because they've lacked education time? I know, the teachers behind the eight ball. Okay. All right, so Virginia and Hanson, District 11. Teachers and parents are both asking, do you support an effort to reduce the amount of testing required? And are there any other programs that you found that should be removed to help to give teachers more time to teach?
Okay. Well, first, testing is important. It's just like accountability and behavior and everything else. You've got to see where your students are. There are standards, and you've got to see if they're at the standards. So testing is important. Having said that, I do agree that if testing begins to interfere with the teacher's teaching, then it's a problem. And having gone around to the different schools, it was one of the main things they complained about. And again, like Joe said, that's from the state. They're putting those testing standards. But I do think it needs to be looked at. As far as removing, and again, I'm not involved yet. I don't school board yet, but I thought of this SEL test that they give the student. I was pretty short. Okay. Anyway, and to me, subjects like that or activities like that take away from actually teaching academics. And so I would love to see an opt-in. If a family really feels that that's something that, a parent feels that that's something they need for their child, I'd like to see them be able to opt into that. But I really don't like, I think is it Panorama Education who does which is what, aren't they at Massachusetts?
Yeah.
I don't really like them gathering data on our students. So, yeah, I feel like maybe that's something we need to have.
All right, Steve McKinney, also District 11. You good? Yeah, you got a lot of experience. Go ahead.
Well, walking into schools as a sub, you would not be surprised that many of the times I walk in as a sub, we do the testing. I met with a third grade teacher a week ago knocking on doors, and I was just asking him how it was as a teacher and being in the school system and on the school board, how could I support him? Testing came up. It wasn't money, it wasn't salary. He was driving all the way, in his case, from District 11, which is in St. Elmo, and he was driving to Hickson every day. And he said the money was, he'd like to have more, but that wasn't an issue. Testing was the issue. For example, he said that he, as a math teacher, was told that he was going to start with addition, which he said is fine. They went from addition to division. And he said, well, that really doesn't seem logical to make that leap. So he said to the other teachers as he was talking about this, when he saw the curriculum for that schedule, they said, well, you don't have to follow it, but the kids are going to be tested every time you finish the unit. So if you're going to teach division and there aren't supposed to be multiplication, then they're going to score poorly and it's going to reflect badly on you. So testing, he met with the people that put the test together, and as you all probably have already figured out, the people that were putting the test together were not teachers. They were not even involved in education. They were involved in metrics and growth and showing things that, yeah, they're important, but they are anomalies when you think about what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do, I would think, as a teacher, is to teach the subject and there be growth. But with such a teaching schedule, jumping around from one thing to the next is illogical. Nobody wins. That was his biggest concern. So testing, we way over.
The online questions, as we can get to right now. Excellent questions and discussion, Amy. So we've got the cards that we're doing tonight, and I'm going to keep these. So we've got the other districts next Monday. We're having this exact same forum with districts, so we're going to keep these shuffled up a little bit. Okay, so Joe Smith, District 3. I don't know if the school board has a lot of control over this, but what would your solution or recommendation be to address the current teacher shortage crisis?
Well, we've done a lot of things, and we, recruitment and retention gets a lot of focus. And, I think of even in my own walk, if you will, sometime around 35 years ago, I made a decision that I wanted to work with young people. And I quickly realized that I ain't gonna get rich being working with young people. And I think that maybe teachers that decide to go into this field, maybe they're understanding that coming out of college. Maybe that's not something I want to do. I don't know. But there's a shortage all over the country. It's not just here. It's all over the country. So recruitment and retention is important. We hired a firm to come in and help us and to find some teachers, spend quite a bit of money, about $500,000. and it's helped some. They've lived up to their, you know, what they agreed to do, but they certainly had a huge impact. And there's just a real shortage. So I think that maybe even when kids are in middle school and high school, start encouraging kids to take a serious look at becoming a lifelong educator. Because the day's going to come when we can't find them at all if we're not careful. And it's a real challenge.
Thank you. Yeah, and don't feel like you have to take the whole time. Okay, so Larry Crone, do you have any ideas or solutions? What would your solution be to the current teacher shortage crisis?
Well, I know teachers that have been hired in Georgia and gotten pay raises just for moving to a different county. Right here, I have the organization chart for the central office of our school district. 10 years ago, 30 listed. This past year, it was 76. We have an office of equity now. They had 28 and a half employees 2 years ago. They had 38 employees last year, and looking at 40 and a half employees this year. The half is a half-time psychologist, I believe. And most of the workers are guidance counselors, about 20 of the 38 this year. We constantly hear about getting rid of central office administrators. I think that's a good thing. I know Mr. Johnson, Superintendent Johnson put in community superintendents. We now have 4 community superintendents, and Superintendent Robertson has kept those. Our chief equity officer makes $136,000 a year. I think we ought to get serious about putting our money where all the campaign promises are that you've heard for God knows how long in Hamilton County, that money needs to be put in the schools, which means in the classroom and in those support people who work in each individual school. When you give a 3% across the board pay raise to everyone, especially somebody making $136,000, but then that school secretary making $42,000 gets a $1,200 pay raise.
Sorry, Larry. Sorry. Okay.
And inflation's at 8.6%.
And you know I'm not cutting you off because I disagree. It's important information. All right, Steve McKinney. What would your solution be or ideas to the current teacher shortage crisis?
Let them teach.
Virginia.
Well, kind of like what you said, I'm not sure how much the school board has to do this, but I would say we need to know something. First, we need to educate the children, get them educated so that they, like Joe said, they might want to go into teaching, give them good, strong fundamentals so they're prepared to go into the teaching career.
Well, you know, and that may have been a redundant, I think it was an important question, but a little, because all 4 of you touched on the reason teachers are leaving, right, or the reasons, and the security, discipline, and those things. So, yeah, that next one is Larry first. This is new to me. I'm making a face because I'm not voting. Are you familiar with the water situation, the water quality issue? And you got any idea? I know. It's very brand new. Yeah, so if it's okay, we will forgive you if you're not familiar with the water quality issue. You can just pass to the next person.
Well, I'm not surprised. The school district last year spent $90,000 on asbestos removal. Now think about that. We've torn buildings down years ago that were totally filled with asbestos and dug a big hole and plowed that school into the ground and out in Alton Park. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we're actually going to, this construction for the new Tyner Middle and High School has begun. And they should open in August of 2024. So that's a building that still has window air conditioners for every room. So I wouldn't be surprised, considering the age of a lot of the buildings in our district, that we would have water issues, water quality issues. We've got so many maintenance issues. So no, I'm not surprised at all.
All right, Steve McKinney, are you familiar with the water quality issue? Mr. Brandon.
Yeah, I think that it points to the bigger problem, and that's this infrastructure. We've got to address infrastructure. It's water today, and it'll be something else tomorrow if we don't. So we just got to be about the business of making schools safe and healthy. And infrastructure is part of that.
Yes, read about it last week, and I think again it comes back to the facilities. I think, you ask the question, the most important things for schools, how much is safety and literacy, but the facilities as well. Going around talking to the different principals, facilities are a true concern, and I do think that reflects this as well. And as Steve said, our schools will be safe and healthy.
I'm just glad we're testing for it, because why we waited so long to even test? I don't know a whole lot about what's happening yet. I just know what I read, just like you have. So I'm anxious to hear more information. But I'm just glad that we're taking the initiative to test. So.
Well, this one was kind of not necessarily connected, but kind of. So I'll just give you each, we'll just do a rapid fire. You want to respond or not respond. So radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer. Ivy Academy is the only school tested for this. Will you commit to look into having other schools tested? Anybody thought about testing for radon? Are schools tested for radon?
Not in the traditional sense. This has been talked about before, and it never got a whole lot of traction. But what we did do, we did test some places, and we didn't uncover any pattern to where it was beginning to be an issue. But look, I'm all for it. If this needs to be done, and as long as it's not going to cost us arm and leg, I mean, absolutely, let's test. But this has kind of been talked about for probably 3 years now.
Well, it sounds like it all kind of wraps into that. You're right, facilities. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Well, July 5th, this is a news article. 24 schools were tested in May. 27 schools built before 1998 were tested this summer. 806 samples, 12 of those sources had lead levels above the state limit. As a result, all 12 were removed from service, and they're going to be supposedly repaired and retested before school opens.
Oh, man, that's Hamilton County. All right. Okay, we're going to do two more and then try to wrap it up and then be respectful for a second. Okay. This one, all right. What is the role of a school board member, and if something needs to be changed or fixed in an area that the state decides, okay, will you take your voice, make your voice heard at the state level? So if you are aware of something that's an issue, but it really has to be addressed at the state level, is that something you're willing to work on addressing?
Absolutely. That may not be the first step. The first step may be talking to the county commissioner. There's probably pathways that would
our responsibility is to hire the superintendent and oversee him. We are truly a board. He works for us. We're the board. Policy and budget. So those are our responsibilities. As far as board and stay, yeah, we have to do that. That's what I felt like needed to be done.
I'm gonna put you on the spot, Joseph, only because I know that you know stuff. So,
My wife, tell her that, because she thinks I don't know.
she knows what you're doing. Okay, so what's the role of the school board? If something needs to be changed in an area that's dictated by the state, are you willing to advocate to change that? And I want to know, because you had talked a few minutes ago about the code of conduct that we have is good, and it's not being enforced. Who's responsible for enforcing that?
Well, actually, and I'm glad that you said, you know, we're responsible for one employee in the school system, has about 4,000, but we're responsible for one, and that's the superintendent. That's the only guy we supervise. I have people call me all the time and complain about a principal. So look, I'll listen, but that's just not my job. So we're responsible for one, that's the superintendent. So if an issue comes up, in the first place I'm gonna go is to Dr. Robinson. You know, what's going on here? What we got to do to fix this? In terms of going to the state level, I'm great friends with every one of our representatives, with our senators, and as a taxpayer, you know, I talk to them often, you know, about concerns that I have, that they have control of up there, that we don't have control of here. So that's not just important for a school board member, but that's important for all of us as taxpaying citizens, is to call our state representatives when we have a concern, let them know what your concern is. That's what they're there for, to represent us.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew you'd know. Yeah. All right, Larry.
Joe is absolutely correct. I mean, we hired a superintendent, we decide district policy and approve it, we approve the annual budget, and yes, we can approve the curriculum. And I'll give you an example. Civics and personal economics and economics in general have been removed from the curriculum, especially for seniors. I was at a school that, because it was tested in the 10th grade, they took civics and moved it down to the 9th grade. Personally, I thought that was ludicrous. We need to return civics to our high school education. And this, you can take it as a junior, but it should be required as a senior. That's one semester of civics, and we should have another semester of economics, and that can even be broken down into personal economics, and you know, you can do macro or micro economics. And I say that because I tried to teach economics in the high school that I finished my career at, because I had gone back and gotten a national certification as a teacher of economics, and they said, no, it's not on the test. So that is something that the school district could advocate for.
But I am fighting that that's not happening.
And I'm with Joe, I know every single one of our, even Yusuf Hakeem, he and I worked for 4 years together on the Chattanooga City Council. We're good friends, so I've got people on both
You're
sides.
right. Yeah, we work with everybody together. Okay, last question. And this is for Jeannie first, and then I think it's Joe, and come back down this way. I'll forgive you if you don't know this yet, because this is kind of a new, I won't forgive Joe Smith, he knows this stuff. How can board meetings be changed so that parents or speakers get a response when they're finished talking? So you're at school board meetings, when they call them delegates, right? Like these parents that have had the bullying issue, they'll come and talk for their 3 minutes or whatever it is, and then they feel unheard because the board does not respond. Yeah. Do you know how that policy can be changed?
I don't know that I've got an answer for that. And what about
difference whatsoever, so I think that's a great question, I don't have an answer for that.
And you would encourage that to be addressed, I hope.
Do what?
You might would encourage that that could be addressed.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's something. Definitely.
All right, Joseph, because I know you know board policy.
Well, I kind of gone down with some and I got criticized a little bit. I won't mention any names, Rebecca, but there was one time.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
If you go to,
Hey, and this is an example, again, we're not stopping your time, or we're not, taking a cut, but you're right, this is where, some of our folks, got mad at you, right? And so we're not 100% Republican supporter 24/7, right? So go ahead.
well, I think you just didn't understand what my motive was. If you've noticed how our meetings go, we have time for public comment, you're given 5 minutes. Let me tell you, 5 minutes is a long time. It's a long time. Now, it's not for you, but it is for a lot of people. 30 minutes wouldn't be long for you, but it is for a lot of folks. It is. And then what happens a lot of times, in that 5 minutes, you'll go around, And then I hate the part where somebody comes up there and they're sharing their concern, and I'm going, what are you talking about? And I want to ask them a question, but I can't do it. Now, I proposed, and we talked about it some, I proposed, let's set aside one night a month and let's go to Red Lake High School. Just like this. And let's let parents talk whatever they want to talk about, but at the same time, give me an opportunity to give me some clarification on what you're talking about there. And I proposed that. So we talked about that some, and in fact, it's right about the time we had all the COVID issues we hadn't talked about in the last 2 years probably. It's something I'd like to see is that we give more time. Now, we cleaned that up a little bit. What we're doing now is we're at the beginning of the meeting, if somebody wants to address an issue that's on the agenda, we put them at the beginning of the meeting. If, we're going to vote on something tonight, so make sure they're heard before the vote. But if it's to talk to us about an issue that we're not going to vote on tonight, then we put them at the end of the agenda. So, but absolutely, I mean, that's how I learn this from parents and stakeholders. That's how I learn. I want to hear, but I want to engage you. I might want to push back, or I might have a question. So I don't like the current format where I can't respond.
And you might advocate to help change that.
I have been. I'm on it already. And then I promise, I won't mention names, Rebecca, that I'm not going to cut to 5 minutes. I'll leave it at 5
We're not
minutes.
gonna hold a grudge. All right, Larry Graham.
Well, I agree with Joe, and we've sat down and talked, and I think that Joe and I are good friends. And if we truly want more parental and community involvement in our schools, the school board needs to get out of the central office and into the district. We should have meetings at Hickson High School, Central High School, and Udowa High School. We should do this. We've got 11 districts. Why can't we have 11 meetings in each of those districts as a school board? Why can't we do that?
You mean rotating the monthly school board?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
You don't want to have 11 meetings every month.
No. Once a month, have a meeting out there. Now, look, I firmly believe, and I will be a school board member because I'm retired. I can be in my schools, in my district, every single week. And that's what I intend to do, and that's what I expect of any school board member. You've got to know those principals. You have to know those students. That's what we need to get back to.
Thank you. All right, Steve McKinney.
Yeah, communication is huge, and anything that we can do to enhance that is what
I've got some more questions here. We are out of time. Our time wraps up at 8 o'clock and it is 7:56. I really, really appreciate everybody that attended, everybody that's engaging. I would encourage you to continue to be engaged in this process. Are you going to be, what? Oh, I thought she was handing me a new question. I said, I just said, look at me, more questions. Thank you again, candidates, for being here, being willing to engage. Voters here and voters watching online, I would encourage you to give the folks that are showing up and willing to engage with the community, give them a thought when you go to vote. And last, let's thank the Red Bank High School for allowing us to hold this meeting here and opening to the community. Yes, you here. Can I have you? This lady right here was, I am a mom, and I get this. She was vacuuming and helping and get ready. Let's give her a round of applause. So anyway, if you all had a couple of dollars in your pocket and could drop it in the basket as a donation to the Red Bank High School, that would be much appreciated. Thank you all. Oh, and if y'all could like clean up your trash on the way out so we don't leave that for them, that'd be great.
Brandy,
Thank you. What?
he's invited.